Welcome to SouthPod, the first and foremost podcast created to tell the true story of tech innovation in the American South. SouthPod is hosted by John Yerian and Stanfield Gray and produced by Dig South Tech Media. Dig South Tech Media is the South's tech hub, the place where leading global brands connect with the most scalable startups. Visit us at digsouth.com and follow us on social media at Dig South. This episode of SouthPod was recorded as a part of the Dig South 2020 Virtual Tech Summit. It features Natalie Angelillo and Nick Huzar of OfferUp. Now let's dig into SouthPod with Natalie Angelillo and Nick Huzar.
Welcome, everybody. Nick and I are excited to be here. Before we get started, Nick and I like to talk a little bit about or showcase some of the things that we've bought and sold on OfferUp. I'll go real quick and just tell you that since we've been home, I have basically changed 3 or 4 rooms in my house over to various, moving one guest bedroom to an office and another office to a guest bedroom. And so I've been doing a lot of shopping, and this little West Elm lamp is actually sitting right on my desk over next to me. So done quite a bit of shopping in that regard.
Yeah, and then I've my favorite purchase is one of these big, large, spring-free trampolines. I spend a lot of time in there with my kids. This one in particular is $2,500 at retail. You can see what I paid for it. I got a really good deal on it. So, like Natalie, I use the product a lot. I'd say a good heavy percentage of my house, in fact, is now furnished from OfferUp. So, we love using the product.
All right. Well, listen, today we are going to, as John mentioned, talk about how we've built a unicorn from used goods. And one of the favorite things that we like to talk about is how Nick came up with the idea and what inspired him to start OfferUp in the first place. So Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about where the idea came from?
Yeah, so for me, I have a 9-year-old daughter now. And when we were expecting, I went into dad mode. I had the 2nd gen iPhone. There was no Android phone at the time. And I literally was standing in a doorway with a room full of stuff. And I kept thinking to myself, kill me now. There's got to be a better way. How am I going to post all these things online for people to, locally to even discover? And that led me to ask a lot of questions. Why hasn't this space evolved? Because of the smartphone, can we reimagine the whole local buying and selling experience? And my conclusion was, I always say the problem we're solving is much bigger than actually used goods. I believe the problem we're solving is we're unlocking local value, and value is stuck in our homes. It's stuck in retail stores. It's stuck in storage units. In fact, 25% of the U.S. population with a 2-car garage cannot park in their garage anymore. 10% of the population now are at storage units. Our homes are much bigger than they were in the 50s, but we're having less children. So my point is, value is kind of stuck. And I think the opportunity that I saw, why I decided to pursue this business was, the smartphone enabled us to take a problem space that was just full of friction and really remove a lot of friction and saving people time, adding trust in the equation. We thought that, hey, if we can do that and do that well, and ultimately everyone has these capabilities in their pockets, then we can really grow a big, large marketplace. So for me, it was honestly just, again, a personal pain point that led into asking a lot of questions and realizing that, I was not alone here.
Absolutely. I think both of us have had that experience of, as parents, you're in this constant cycle of kids outgrowing things and kids needing things. And, particularly too, oftentimes we find ourselves in a situation where we're also caring for our elderly parents and maybe downsizing them. So I think a lot of people can relate to the parents' pain points being the origin of many good ideas. So, let's talk a little bit about how we've managed to attain the success that we have. We've had a formula or an equation, I guess you could call it, that we've really stuck to over the years. You and I have been in many, many meetings where we've grappled with this formula, bouncing ideas around. So talk a little bit about, the keys to success. What made us succeed when maybe others couldn't?
Yeah, so we really think of this as kind of the three legs of our stool, and if you remove any one of them, clearly the stool falls down. So, step one was really, again, the personal pain point was I just want to take a picture of something and make things discoverable, and you can do that on OfferUp in 20 seconds. So that was the first aha idea. But then we also looked at the whole buying and selling experience, and we said, well, why are people giving out phone numbers and email addresses? That doesn't seem very trustworthy. What if we could just build in chat? And that seems like that would make sense. And phones have maps built in. Let's make that process easier. And so, we really looked at the end-to-end experience, and we obsessed over simplicity, not only how you post items on OfferUp, but also how you discover. So, if you open up the OfferUp app, you'll realize there's just a bunch of pictures. And we leverage things like data science to surface what we show you, but we made it a very visual and engaging and a very simple experience on purpose. And so we put a lot of thought into that end-to-end experience. On the trust side of things, it was one of those things where we just felt like the existing players and local did almost nothing here. And we felt like that was a really big shame. And we felt like, man, if we're going to bring strangers together face to face, we got to really invest in this. And so we've been doing a number of things over the years. One of the first programs that we actually built around trust was something we called,
True
You program. And that's a two-step process. Step one is you take a selfie. Step two is we ask you to scan a government ID. And if we do some facial recognition, and if it's a match, you get this special badge on your profile. We did that when we were really small, and we did it knowing that most people at the time were not going to scan a government ID. But we wanted to stand behind trust as a brand. We thought that was really important. And so, over the years, we continued to invest in that area. We built out things like profiles and ratings at the end of every transaction, so people can then decide when they meet with people, like, are people showing up on time? Was the item as described? We've also built out our community meetup spots, which also help with simplicity to some degree, where we can actually recommend third-party locations for buyers and sellers to meet. At the same time, those have to be well lit. They have to have a camera. And so we now have thousands of these around the country. And so we're helping buyers and sellers to make more informed decisions. So I think trust is going to be an area, especially given our size and scale, that, we will never stop investing in that. And we really want to make sure we're equipping our buyers and sellers with as much information they can to make wise decisions. And so those are really core pillars of our business. But if our marketplace isn't liquid, meaning buyers and sellers aren't finding success, then it doesn't really work. And so we've done a lot over time to make sure that we're connecting supply and demand, and making sure that on a per geographic level that those things are in balance. And so that's something that we're always continuing to refine and work on. And so liquidity is really important. I mean, at this point, we have billions of dollars worth of transactions on a monthly basis occurring on our platform. So that's always been a metric that we focused on, considerably, back in the day, was how do we make sure we're connecting supply and demand on so many levels. So maybe I can read a little bit more, since Natalie's, on the slide now, about kind of, how have those three legs to our stool helped us to achieve the growth that we've had, and what do those numbers kind of look like? So, if you look today, we have over 20 million monthly active users on our platform. And to be clear, we're only in the United States. So that's pretty considerable, having that many people that are using, OfferUp on a daily basis, monthly basis. We also have over 600,000 items posted, every single day. And if you think of the types of items that are posted on OfferUp, it is at this point literally anything. You can buy the shoes I'm wearing. I actually got on OfferUp. To cars are a big category, furniture, clothing, electronics. So you name it, you can pretty much find it on OfferUp on a daily basis. As I mentioned earlier, we do facilitate a lot of meetups, and I think one thing that's very different between OfferUp and a lot of other e-commerce is, we are bringing people together face to face, and so we have over 60 million, annual meetups, happening on the platform. And then I'd say also if you look into the shopping category, we're one of the top shopping apps. And again, we're, pretty proud of that, given our size relative to some of the bigger e-commerce players that have been around for 20 plus years. And we've been in that category for a number of years now. And then we just crossed 100 million app downloads. Again, we're only here in the US, so that's a pretty sizable number. So again, I think those three legs of the stool, simplicity, trust, and liquidity, every one of those was pretty important to be able to achieve those numbers that we're seeing today. That's
great. Yeah, thank you. I think that it is, there's so many things that go into building a business like this. But we keep coming back to these core pillars, and we're constantly having conversations about these trade-offs between simplicity and trust. And then there's the liquidity, obviously, that has equaled our growth. So a powerful formula for us, to be sure. So we've had some exciting news lately. We just acquired our competitor, LetGo. Talk a little bit about why we did that, and how does acquiring LetGo figure into the OfferUp growth strategy?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting, if you look at the U.S., we're a series of different markets all around the country, and I think that OfferUp and LetGo took very different approaches to the U.S. And so we have a lot of strengths in markets where maybe they don't, and vice versa. So, when we thought about how do we continue to grow, not only in the markets that we're in, but also expanding our footprint, partnering with LetGo was just kind of a no-brainer there. And we already have markets like LA, for example, and Seattle, for example, where close to 20% of the entire adult population in those markets is using OfferUp on a monthly basis already. And so as we thought about, what is a potential big catalyst for growth, not only in those markets, but also in other markets where maybe LetGo has more of a presence, we thought that, hey, if we can come together, it just benefits buyers and sellers. They're going to find way more inventory. They're going to be able to sell their products even faster. So partnering with them was a very natural kind of step. In addition to that, we also raised $120 million of new capital. And so, our plans for that will be to continue to focus on product innovation. A lot of those three parts of the stool, you'll continue to see us invest in all three of those areas. Like how are we improving liquidity? How are we building trust? And how are we bringing more supply on, but doing it in a very simple way? That's always what we've focused on and will continue to focus on.
That's great. So obviously, this is not an easy time for many people across the world, not just here in the U.S., obviously, but the pandemic has changed things for businesses of all sizes. And obviously OfferUp is no different. I think I think one of the things, and you and I have had this conversation, that we've realized is that how much people actually do rely on OfferUp as a primary source of commerce for them. So, it may be we've seen in many cases the fact that, it was safer, or people felt more comfortable, or it was more convenient for somebody to buy, the drill that they needed or the exercise equipment that they needed from their neighbor versus, go to a crowded store or whatnot. So, we've had both some pretty meaningful shifts in the engagement and whatnot in our marketplace, and as well as some kind of interesting statistics about what things people are buying and selling. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of what we've seen as a business as it relates to COVID and the economic impacts?
Yeah. Well, I think first off, I acknowledge that a lot of people are just going through a lot right now. Clearly, I think people are kind of fed up of being at home. We've been at home for a while, feels like Groundhog's Day, but, and I think a lot of people are just trying to figure out, how to make ends meet. We've seen people, literally liquidating their furniture to pay rent and eat. And so I think that's challenging. And then on the buy side, I think that getting supply is pretty hard right now. Try to find a bike. That's really hard at this particular time. So I think because of that, you have seen that clearly e-commerce companies are benefiting from this challenge with a lot of brick and mortar being closed or unable to operate really as they have in the past. And so, we've seen a large acceleration in our business in many different areas and big shifts in certain areas. So, a good example would be, well, how do you keep kids busy during this time? And so we've seen a 3x increase in people actually buying video games. And, as a parent myself, I know I've given my kids a little bit more leeway in terms of their electronics usage, especially for working parents where you just need that hour to get something done. Unfortunately, that's been a kind of a byproduct of COVID is how do we keep our kids busy as we continue to try to maintain our house and work at the same time. We've seen a 130% increase in searches for exercise equipment. With a lot of gyms being closed, how do you get things? Like, how do you stay fit? And I think it's a major change that we've seen is trying to find home exercise equipment has really gone up in a considerable way as gyms are mostly closed for now. Computer equipment. I know I felt like this personally where, as we moved out of the office at OfferUp and I've spent more time in my home, I've spent far more time in my home office than I ever have. And by being there, I decided this chair isn't very good anymore. And, my desk needs some changes. And so, I think people are now realizing that they're going to be hunkered down at home for a while. What are some of the things we can do to make our office more, habitable? And then we've also seen a 40% increase in buyers using shipping. So we introduced shipping a few years ago. And the benefit to that is, again, you don't have to meet people face to face. So now you can get supply from anywhere in the country with the click of a button. And we've seen a lot of people actually using OfferUp for that. And the last stat I'd share, which I think is really interesting, is those old puzzles that you had in the back of your closet that you kind of don't really use. They might be worth something right now. We've seen 1,000% increase in puzzles. It's the number one thing people are searching for right now in OfferUp. And so I think it's, when you get really bored, you're going to have to turn to puzzles. So maybe dust those things off if anyone has those and post them online and see if you can sell.
That's great. So a little bit about, we just mentioned, obviously COVID, we produced a report in late February of this year, which is our second annual re-commerce report. So really looking at the impact of re-commerce and families and how their buying behavior for their family lifestyles are affected by re-commerce, and are they doing more shopping, and is re-commerce really a trend that we're seeing, not just in the apparel category, which there's a lot of conversation about that, but really when you think about re-commerce, it's across all of the categories. We were talking earlier about, as parents, we're constantly in the cycle of buying and selling. And one of the things that's interesting about OfferUp is that we have this incredible horizontal marketplace where, as you mentioned, people can buy, they're buying their car, they're buying their refrigerator, they're buying clothes, they're buying sneakers, they're buying computer equipment. And so really taking a much broader lens at re-commerce is not just about apparel, but about, all the different things in our lives. And, one of the things that was interesting is that, we found that financial stress was a major driver for parents in terms of turning to re-commerce. But it's also that we also found that it's becoming much more acceptable and much more common for people to buy secondhand, and people are concerned about the environment and concerned about other things that are driving them to turn to re-commerce. The report itself was ready to go, as I said, at the end of February, and then we ended up holding it and then resurveying as a result of COVID. And I think Nick, you and I have seen this, and you just talked a lot about kind of the impacts in the categories, but the COVID impact on families has been very, very significant. And we saw this across all of the questions in our report. And, and Nick, one of the reasons I'm even at OfferUp was because of a conversation you and I had 4.5 years ago about your commitment and belief in community. Can you talk a little bit about, what makes us different from a community standpoint and, basically our your feelings about the value of community as it relates to how we've been able to build OfferUp.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is probably related to the nature of our business by being local. Especially early on, I started to really feel that, people were coming to, I always felt like there was so much local supply, we just couldn't see it because it was locked up. And I think the assumption was to become a large business, you needed to be into shipping, right? You needed to do all these things. And I just had a hard time with that because I felt like, I think it's here all around us. We just can't see it. Are you telling me that, my neighbors don't have similar interests? I'm sure they probably do. How do we unlock the supply? How do we see it? And what started to bubble up early on was, it's kind of interesting that these kind of relatable items are kind of bonds between people, where we've actually seen people that would, sell a bike to some other kid, and all of a sudden the moms would hit it off, and now they go on play dates with their kids. Or we've actually had people get married. We had a couple that met at a McDonald's and bought an iPad, and somehow sparked up a conversation, realized they were into each other, and then ended up getting married. So, again, I think because OfferUp is local, it has more of a human element. You're bringing people together face to face. It gives them a minute to chat and get to know each other. It's not just a click of a button and something shows up. And so I think, because of that, we really thought a lot about community, how that plays a role into OfferUp. So it's always kind of been a core part of kind of who we are and how that shows up in how people use our product.
Yeah, it's been really rewarding to see, even, in times like this, the people who are offering things even for free and saying, I have a stack of books. If you're, a mom, teaching your kids at home, come and get them. Or, we had a story of a woman who offered a trampoline for free. Not one as fancy as the spring free one, but it made a difference for a woman who was trying to keep 3 small children entertained during this time. So really impacted and by some of these meaningful acts of kindness between neighbors as well. It's rewarding to see that. So I know we want to save a little bit of time for questions, but I want to just kind of wrap up by talking about your vision for the future of OfferUp. Where do you see us focusing? What do you see ahead for OfferUp?
Yeah, so I think going back to the 3 legs of the stool, we'll continue to invest in all 3 of those areas. So how do we bring more supply online? How do we build trust in that experience, and also how do we really improve liquidity? And I think especially right now with COVID, the opportunity in local is significant. And I think, a lot of people get it on the outside, look at OfferUp and say, oh, it's mostly used goods. Well, that's fine today, but that was never the grander vision. The grander vision was to be a platform for local commerce, period. And so if you think of the opportunity, like 85% of commerce today is still not online. Even in the world of large e-commerce players that are out there, I think there's a significant amount of locked up value that just is screaming to get out, especially right now with COVID. And you see that today where the large companies with the infrastructure are actually doing fairly well. It's the small and medium guys that don't have the capabilities or don't have an IT team. They're the ones that are having a huge challenge. And so, if they can take and share a photo on OfferUp, they have instant e-commerce. And so, our focus is going to be, how do we help build more tools and bring more supply in and better connect that to buyers that are interested in that. So I'm very excited. I still think there's still a long way to go in local. That's still our sweet spot. That's where we're going to continue to focus, over the next few years. And again, I'm excited by partnering now with LetGo, because I think that's going to be a big catalyst for growth over the next few years, as well. So excited for what all those things will bring to the table.
Great. So yes, lots of work to do, but lots of opportunity ahead as well. So it looks like we've got the start of a couple of questions here. Let's see. So it looks like we've got one with the acquisition behind you. Who or what do you see as your primary competition?
Yeah, so I think that, I like to be clear with people that, there are many ways people can buy and sell things, not only online, but also local. So, we are in, you can clearly buy things on Amazon, and Amazon's world class at selling new things and doing that at like just an amazing company. You've got other existing players like Craigslist and eBay. So, I think we're attacking the problem in a pretty different way though. So, because we were very focused on local, I think there's a lot of green fields to be figured out there. So, we don't spend a lot of time, honestly, here debating on what the competition is doing. We really spend a lot of time focused internally on how can we make things simpler? How can we build trust into the platform? So, we don't lose a lot of sleep over what's happening in the competitive landscape, again, because I think the opportunity is pretty vast with 85% of commerce still not online. I think there's just a lot of green field that we can go out and plow through and make a big impact. So, we've also had people ask, like, well, who are you taking market share away from? I've honestly never thought about it that way. I've always thought about well, we're really expanding the market. There's a big market that's out there. So that's generally how we think about the kind of competitive landscape. We've had competitors come and go, and ever since we've started, but I think we've always been very focused on doing what we do well and trying to continue to obsess kind of over those three legs of the stool.
Great. So another question. So let's see. Are there technological innovations you see coming that will change your business? Changes with the phone, photography technology.
You missed one. I'll get to that one.
Sorry.
Do you think the pandemic is a deterrent or an opportunity for entrepreneurs looking to start a company?
Oh, sorry. I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's okay. I think people should start a company whenever they want to start a company. Mm-hmm. Don't wait. If you're going to start a company, do not wait. Go do it. Because time, it always takes way longer than you think. And so again, when we started OfferUp, was actually at the tail end of the housing crisis. And the challenges are raising capital is a lot harder in those kind of times. But amazing companies come out. Look, we were scrappy. It took us a while. We kind of scratch and clawed to kind of get initial traction, initial investors. But because of that, honestly, I think we built probably a better company. Another company I respect a ton is Airbnb. They came out of the housing crisis too. And so, I think with anyone, I think people trying to time when to start a company and an idea, I think is crazy. I think you should just go do it if you're excited, and hopefully, you'll find a way to get there. But I don't think anyone's that brilliant. They can match their own ambition and their own momentum to the market. I think that becomes it's a little hard.
Yes. Well, given that starting any kind of a company requires an incredible amount of passion and belief and sort of personal drive, like you said, timing it would be really tricky, if not impossible. So let's talk a little bit about technological innovations. What are we seeing? What are you seeing with the phone, with photography, data science, maybe?
Yeah. So I think what I think is really interesting. Well, the phone's a good example. So one of the predictions we made when we started OfferUp was the phones would always get better, and we were exactly right. Like I don't have the newest phone yet. And I'm like, I need the new one because the camera's amazing. So I think there's a lot of advantages to that. It just makes it a way better experience to just browse and look at great photos. But you can also do a lot with extracting information out of those photos, and the better photos, the more data you can get. So we are doing that today, and we'll continue to do that. How do we get posting so easy that you take a photo and we can add metadata to the post and help better connect buyers and sellers. So that'll be an area that we will continue to focus for sure. Data science, no brainer. I think it's all about liquidity and figure out how to really do those things. So I think those are core parts, and really leveraging the capabilities that are now in all of our pockets. I think those are very exciting innovations that'll just make buying and selling a lot easier in the future. So I still think, again, it's early days, and I think some people say, oh, it's e-commerce is all happening and like it's all been figured out. I don't buy that at all. I still think there's a lot of friction that can be removed in local commerce, especially.
Well, we see that for sure, right? With, there are not only technological changes coming, but economic, and then just general changes of how the world works. as a result of, this particular pandemic. I mean, small businesses, restaurants, all kinds of companies are going to need to completely operate differently. And that, will certainly trickle out to kind of marketplace needs and how people need to buy and sell. So lots of interesting changes and opportunities ahead for sure. Okay, I think we've covered all of our questions. So I guess we have just a second left to say thank you. Thanks, Nick, for sharing our story and answering all of my questions. And thanks, John and team for having us at Dig South.